What is up, basketball fans? Welcome to the latest episode of the Harold McBasketball Show. I'm your gracious host, as always, Harold McBasketball, along with my co-host, I Know Ball, Paul. Paul, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, Harry. How are you?
Doing fantastic. We are getting much closer to the start of the NBA season. We had media day last week, so we're finally starting to see the new pictures of the teams together, new players in new jerseys, Jimmy Butler and his emo phase. It's been exciting. It feels like the season's almost here.
And preseason has started. I think there's a Celtics game starting in like 15 minutes. So maybe we
Let's
should
go Celtics.
reschedule the podcast. I'm
That's
kidding.
okay. I will catch the highlights on YouTube as always.
I
But I'm
caught
expecting great things from this preseason team. Preseason chip on the way.
Yes, especially Peyton Pritchard just re-signed, so I think he's going to be a big part of this preseason team. Luke
Yep.
Cornett and others. But I was going to say I watched some of the Mavericks Timberwolves game. The first game they were playing in I think in Dubai or Abu Dhabi, one of those. Are they the same city? I don't know. I'm ignorant. But caught the first game. That was really good. Towns looked really good. Edwards didn't play in that game, but um then I watched the highlights of the other game. I watched some of the highlights of the Warriors Lakers game. And yeah, I'm just hyped that basketball really feels like it's back. We're gonna draft soon. And before you know it, I'll be spending every night just watching basketball like I love doing.
Yeah. The preseason is fun because it's nice to get those little snippets of Curry playing and hitting a three. And then I saw something say on Instagram, then like Anthony Davis then goes in transition and gets an and one on the other side of the court. So it's nice like seeing the stars out there and playing together with their teams. It's not like summer league where it's like, you're seeing just like the young prospects and that's it. It's like you're really seeing the full rosters. So even if they're not like, playing super competitively or putting out their best strategies, it's just nice to see all the stars back out there on the court. It really gets me hyped up for the regular season.
Yeah. They usually play like a full half and they go decently hard. It's not bad. And then typically they sit the second half. But like I said, Towns, he came in hot. He looked good. Luca had some nice highlights. But him and Kyrie might have played not even two full quarters. But um, Chris Paul looking like he's a nice fit. I saw some highlights with Clay. So yeah,
Yeah,
NBA
oh yeah,
preseason's not bad. I was gonna say just
no, it's great. It's a very nice appetizer to the regular season. Timberwolves also 2-0 right now in the preseason. Only team that's 2-0.
And this is going to be a nice, smooth transition from me here. But Bobby Marks from ESPN did kind of I think he did more of a regular season power rankings, and he ranked the Timberwolves second. Now, I didn't
Bobby
read,
Marks did.
I believe so.
Where are you
Uh,
from, Bobby Marks?
yeah, I don't have ESPN Plus, so I didn't read the full thing, but there were a lot of like, Twitter screenshots and whatnot, and he had the Timberwolves. Now I'm kind of doubting my own information because I feel like he predicted they would have like 47 or 48 wins, which to me
Right,
that
probably
doesn't
not.
make
Probably
sense.
not enough to get them second. Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
Regardless, like that's like pretty bullish on the Wolves, and I looked up. He's from New Jersey, so there's no Minnesota bias there. And Bobby Marks is like a very respectable journalist. He's
Right.
made several appearances on the Low Post, and I always enjoy when he's on. If you want to come on the Harold McBasketball Show, all you need to do is reach out, Bobby, and we can debate your scorching hot Minnesota Timberwolves take. I don't know though. I think a lot of people are still like riding high on like Anthony Edwards looking so good in the FIBA World Cup that I think like people are trying to like overreact a little bit as to, like how good the Wolves could be because of that. I don't really foresee them being like a top four team. I still kind of view them as like potential play-in team, but we'll see. We'll see. We're gonna do our power rankings today, so you can kind of see like how we think they stack up, like not only in the West, but like just like how they fare against the entire league.
That's the transition right there. Yeah. We are doing a power rankings today. Originally, we said we were going to rank 15. Then we're like, might as well rank 20. And then by the end, we're like, fuck it. Let's just rank every team at this point. So might be a long episode, but I think we'll try to keep a good pace. We're getting better at moving things along. And yeah, just the power rankings. We did our East, we did our West. Things have happened, so it feels appropriate to just do the full power rankings. And man, I got a ring light, so maybe I look a little better, but I swear I look like I'm glowing or something. I look like a ghost.
Yeah, we're still working with our producers to figure out the best formula for audio and video.
Guys, if you know how to connect a Blue Yeti mic to a laptop that doesn't have USB ports, I've tried these fucking converters, Sateki and some other one. It doesn't work. And it seems to just be through Zoom. Like the mic works in my system settings, but if you're a tech guy, I feel like when you have an audience, might as well reach out to them. So, shoot us an email, theheraldmcbasketballshow@gmail.com, or in our comments. Because this is my older laptop and I feel like it doesn't look great. I look very dark and now my face is glowing. So
Yeah, or if you happen to own a company for a better microphone and you would like to sponsor the podcast and send Paul and I some free microphones, we would love to plug the product if it's worthy.
that would be sick. Yeah. I would definitely take like a Bluetooth microphone or one that's more compatible with Macs. So who's your number one team in your power rankings, Harry?
Let's see. Before we get into power rankings, let's set the stage a little bit.
Okay.
Kind of we talked about before, just saying that when we're doing our power rankings, this is essentially how good we think the team is overall, not really indicative of what we think their regular season record is going to be. Because obviously there are some teams that we might be more bullish on that could end up sitting stars that would affect their regular season standings, or maybe they've got a player who's suspended for 25 games. But I'm not going to hold that against them because I'm just ranking them based on how good I think they are, and essentially what I think their odds are would be of winning the title.
Yes.
So that's what I'm going based off of. And it's going to be also a little bit different from how we power ranked the East and West standings, just because a lot has changed. If you recall, we had the Heat very high on both of our lists, and we had assumed that Lillard was going to the Heat, as had everybody else. That's not the case. So the Heat are going to be a different spot. A lot of things have happened. Opinions have changed. So these lists are not going to too closely resemble what we had, cooked up at the start of the offseason for our East and West rankings.
And I believe we also did it more regular season rankings, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we were trying to predict seeding essentially.
Right. So yeah, this is strength of roster and odds to win it all.
Yep.
Should we get into it?
Yeah, let's do it. So I'll start with my number one team. I think after a lot of trades went through, I think it's clear that there are three teams that are in a tier above everybody else.
For sure.
It was very tempting to give this top spot to one of these new powerhouses, either the Celtics or the Bucks, but I decided to kind of pump the brakes a little bit and still give it to the Nuggets. I still think they're reigning champions. They stomped everybody on their way to winning the title last year. It wasn't particularly close with anybody that they played. I think their dominance is going to continue this year. They have the best player in the league. Their chemistry is so good. The roster makes a ton of sense with their mix of shooting and cutters and strong defensive players. I think even with the moves that the Celtics and Bucks made, even if they are better on paper, which I don't really know that they are, I think that they're going to be hard pressed to then also match the chemistry that the Nuggets have developed over years of playing together. So they're still my top team.
Me too. Yeah. And for the reasons you said, that the chemistry and how they play together is something that the Bucks and the Celtics are going to have to work hard to compete with how well the Nuggets play together. And it's still a very deep roster. Aaron Gordon, KCP, Jamal Murray, of course, is going to be 100% healthy. Last year, he was kind of getting back into the swing of things. So, yeah, the Nuggets have the intangibles. They're the reigning champs. They stomped everyone on their way to a championship. And yeah, they lost Bruce Brown essentially. And I think, what's his name? Christian Braun or Brown. He's going to step up. They have other guys that can step up, I think, essentially. So they're my number one.
I think so too. And they still have KCP. So they still have these other 3-and-D shooting guard, small forward kind of guys who can fill in that gap. So, losing Bruce Brown hurts a little bit, because he was awesome for them in the playoffs. But the team is still so deep that I don't think anyone sees that loss and thinks this team has really declined at all. So I think they're still the favorites.
For sure. Who's your two?
Two is where two. This is hard. This is between Bucks and Celtics here. I think that's pretty clear. I want the Celtics. Maybe there's kind of like a homer bias, but I just think this team like feels a little bit stronger with the roster overall. Giannis and Lillard is definitely like a formidable duo, and I think you're kind of just having like a guy off. The Bucks probably have two of the top three guys between both teams because Giannis one, Tatum two, Lillard three. But I think like a lot of like the next guys are all Celtics, where it's like next is going to be Brown, then KP, then Holiday, and then like maybe it's Middleton. So I think the team is just like a lot deeper. The Celtics have six starters right now, which feels awesome. I'm just excited to see how this roster looks. I think they've got a team that's going to be maybe the best defensive team in the league, super switchable, but then also just have this like lights out offense. So I'm excited to see them play. I think they're gonna be better than the Bucks. And I think it's funny that like the Bucks did this trade to get Lillard and like kind of like by accident ended up giving the Celtics Drew Holiday, which was like the perfect piece. It really feels like he like fills the hole that Marcus Smart left behind. So I think they kind of like accidentally like got a step ahead of the Celtics by making the Lillard trade and then got to put a step behind after the Celtics went out and got Holiday.
And I think Zach Lowe, I was listening to his podcast as I do. He made a great point that Drew is going to be excellent to have just for kind of informing us on how to best guard the Bucks, especially on the perimeter. He's like a super high IQ player, and that's a big advantage having someone who played for the Bucks, because I think inevitably they're going to match up. Things could happen, but there's a good chance they're going to have to go through each other to get to the final. So Drew will be an advantage in that respect. And then on top of that, just being, like you said, the perfect replacement for Marcus and filling that hole in our roster so beautifully. So yeah, I'm with you. Nuggets 1, Celtics 2, Bucks 3, but they're all in that kind of elite tier where they're clearly the three best teams as of right now.
Yeah, and I think something that's also like kind of like a random thing to throw out is like Holiday and Lillard had gone head to head in the playoffs when it was Holiday on the Pelicans and Lillard was on the Blazers, and the Pelicans swept the Blazers and like Holiday like locked up Lillard. So obviously I think things have changed. I think Lillard is like possibly even gotten better since that series. So I'd be interested to see how they match up. But in the past, like Drew Holiday like has gotten the better of him in the playoffs. So that could be a super interesting story, just like within all the other stories that would happen if we were lucky enough to be blessed with like a Bucks Celtics playoff series.
I have no recollection of that.
I
Do you
think
know
it
what year?
was. Let's see. I actually just looked up. It's right in front of me. It was 2017. I think. Oh, sorry. It was 2018. And I think this year is when the Pelicans also had Rondo. But let me see if he is here. Yeah. So this team was DeMarcus Cousins, Anthony Davis, Drew Holiday, Rajon Rondo. And I believe Rondo was also incredible this series and had like, a 2020 game where it was like 20 points, 20 assists. This was actually like a really fun Pelicans team.
Yeah, like did the Pelicans then go on to play the Warriors? Because and then Steph hit that kind of iconic shot, or maybe that was a different year.
That could be it. I'm not totally sure what that team went on to do after that playoff series, but
I have to go back.
that
That's
that feels right. Yeah, no, it's a very like niche like Pelicans team to look into because it was very briefly lived after they traded for Cousins, and then pretty much like Cousins had like all these unfortunate injuries. Rondo got traded, and the team just kind of dissolved once Davis wanted out. But it did have like a season or two where it was actually like a very fun, like interesting team to watch.
yeah, crazy to think Drew, DeMarcus, and Anthony Davis and Rondo not totally at the end of his career. That's an interesting four. And I'm
Yeah,
probably
there's a cheeky
forgetting some
team.
names too.
Yeah, I mean, I have the roster in front of me. Just a name drop, and then we'll get back on topic. But
Do it.
the team also had a Nikola Mirotic, who was like really good when he played in the league. They also had Tony Allen, Omer Ashik, Jordan Crawford, Celtics legend. that might be kind of it for relevant players. Then it's like Solomon Hill, but there's some fun ones on this team though. I guess they also had Josh Smith, but like Josh Smith was like totally washed by now.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, fun team. Okay, cool. So I assume you also had Celtics 2, Bucks 3. Is that correct?
totally. I kind of want to know who was on that Trailblazers team. Was LaMarcus still on that team?
Yeah, LaMarcus was definitely still on that team.
Okay, so
Here,
they
let
sold
me
him
pull it
too.
up though.
Yeah, this
Just to
is more
confirm.
interesting than our power rankings.
I know we should just podcasted this. Let's see. This actually might have been post LaMarcus Aldridge. This might have been like the year before or the year after he left. Because this team is like um Damian Lillard, McCollum, Yusuf Nurkic. Wow, kind of just like the usual disgusting group. Evan Turner, who was on a terrible contract, Noah Vonleh, who was
Mm.
terrible, Myers Leonard, who was kind of racist, Jake Layman, who sucked, Zach Collins, who also kind of sucked, Alfred Aminu, who also kind of sucks. Yeah, this team wasn't very good.
Yeah, this is definitely post Blazers peak.
Yeah, and when they just gave like a ton of like bad contracts out. But let's see. I think in the playoffs this year though, it's like these are like Damian Lillard's like points per game in the playoffs. It's like 23 points, 22, 27, 27, 18 the year he matched up against Holiday, 27, 24, 34. So like Holiday like locked him up. Like 18 is like terrible for Damian Lillard in the playoffs. Um, let's see. He shot 39% from 2 and 30% from 3. Which is like an overall field goal percent of 35%, which is just like fucking terrible. And let's see, he averaged about 5 assists and 4 turnovers. So just like really bad that series. Just got absolutely locked up. So I just think that's a fun little storyline for if they play each other again.
Yeah, yeah, great callback. I mean, it'll be super fun. Yeah, again, we've said it to see them match up, to see the Bucks and the Celtics. The storylines will go crazy. So
Yeah, and like one more thing for like we kind of like gave our Celtics rant why we think the Celtics might be better. And like this is to talk a little more about like why I put um the Bucks a little bit further behind is although like I was saying they do kind of need to make a move to be a little bit younger. Like the team still feels old, and it feels like one mishap can like sink this team, especially because they're just like very thin now. So it's like Damian Lillard and Giannis is going to be awesome, but like Brook Lopez is like 37. He doesn't even need to get hurt to be like irrelevant this season. Like it's possible that you know the cliff kind of like catches up with him and he's not as good. And then Middleton's like still not even like fully recovered. You know, like he's
yeah,
practicing now, but he's not doing full practices yet. So I'd imagine he's going to come into the season like kind of slow, probably sitting back to backs. It's possible it's an injury where it takes more than a year to like play yourself back to like 100%. So it feels like there's still question marks with those two guys. And then like the rest of the roster did just get thinner with this Lillard move. So, you know, you're kind of banking on other guys to eventually step up. And I don't know if that's like Bobby Portis or like Pat Connaughton, but I don't know if I'm like in love with needing big games out of those guys in the playoffs.
Bobby, I have more faith in, but let me tell you, Pat Connaughton is not it.
No, he's not. He had one good playoff run like 2 years ago. And I think it was pretty evident, like, last season that he doesn't have a ton to offer and they probably should have kept DiVincenzo.
Yeah, I had Giannis in fantasy. I won the chip, by the way, but you know
Thanks for throwing it out there.
he was injured a bit towards the end of the season, and I think Middleton wasn't playing. I think Grayson might have even had some stuff. So I stream Connaughton like, and he doesn't do anything. He's not productive even when he has all the opportunity. So
He can
decent
dunk though.
defender, but
He's a sneaky like 40-inch vertical.
sneaky vertical and a multi-sport athlete, but not a
Yeah.
great NBA player and not someone I would have faith in stepping up. Bobby Portis, though, like I do like him a lot as a player. So
Me too. And he was also like one of those guys who was pretty good for Team USA. So that always just makes me like them a little bit more. Unless they're bad for Team USA, which I'll kind of get into a little bit later in my list. But yeah, shout out Bobby. Cool. Okay, well we talked a lot about those teams. Just the Nuggets won it all, and there's been tons of Bucks Celtics recently. So do you want to give us your fourth team, Paul? And we'll see if we're on the same page with this one. So far we're 3 for 3. I feel like
yeah,
this is probably where we deviate, but what you got?
the Warriors.
Okay, yeah, this is where we deviate, but I'm okay with that.
Just my quick justification is, I mean, I don't think I have to justify it too much, but I think Steph is Steph. Clay looks back in form based on the end of the season and preseason. He looks really good. Chris Paul, I think, is actually going to be a pretty good fit, and I'm starting to actually drink the Kool-Aid a little bit and think that he's going to be better than Jordan Poole was for them, just because of how talented of a passer he is. Like, he's just going to set up the shooters so well, and Kuminga is going to take his next step. So, and Wiggins back for the full season. He missed a ton of games, so that's my spiel. I think I'm confident with them at 4. Whether they're going to have a great regular season, I don't know. I could see them falling more mid standings, but come playoffs, I'm fairly confident that they make it out of the first round, no problem, and they're always a threat to make it to the finals. And last thing is I think they match up pretty well with the Nuggets. As far as Draymond, Looney, it's that's a pretty decent duo at having some sort of shot at stopping Jokic. Jokic is such an unstoppable force, but those two being as physical as they are, and as good defenders as they are, like I kind of like that. Their odds when they're fully healthy against the Nuggets. So that's my spiel.
Yeah, I think it's a good take. I think you're about right with saying that like the Warriors are definitely a team that go higher when you're doing power rankings than like actual like conference rankings, because I think we had them a bit lower when we were doing like standings projections, which makes sense because this is an older team now, so they're just going to have players that miss games. So that could drop them in the standings a little bit, but I think come playoff time, like they're still better than a lot of these teams in the West. I'd have them at 4, but I do still have them like pretty high in my standings, and I think they're worthy of that. But I'm curious to see how the Chris Paul experiment goes. That's still something I think like I just don't know what to expect until I actually see it, because I've heard whispers of Chris Paul starting, but then I'm not really sure how that starting lineup looks or like how good it actually is if you're doing Chris Paul, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and then you do like Wiggins, Draymond. Like, is that the starting lineup? Like, I don't totally know who comes off the bench in that situation.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm still like a little bit skeptical to where they're like some other teams I kind of want to put above them until I see a little bit more out of them. But I think you're right. Like, they've got Curry, they've got all the 3-point shooting, they've got Steve Kerr. So this team's as lethal as ever, and still have a great shot of going on a run into playoffs if they make it in. So we'll see. I like it.
And I think the starting lineup will be fluid. Obviously, I think Draymond will start his fair share. I think Chris Paul, they'll mix, they'll match. But what I just love is that Chris Paul is not going to be asked to do much scoring, and I think that's the big hit that he's taken to his game. Obviously, he's not a great defender either, but his passing is unreal. It's he's one of the best passers to ever do it, and so with scores like Clay, Steph, Wiggins, he can just focus all his energy on setting those guys up and not try to do any scoring, which I think is something that it's the biggest part of his game that's taken as a hit as he's aged, for sure. So who's your 4th?
I had the Suns here, and this is kind of like a tough call because part of me was also considering the Warriors for this spot, but I think the Suns have a really good roster. It's like I think Durant is still like beyond elite, and I think they had a really good season last year, considering that they essentially just put together that team in the middle of the season. So they made some better moves this offseason, I think, to help the roster make a little bit more sense. And I love the duo of like Durant and Booker. I think they're so good. I think Booker is incredible. I think Beal is still kind of like an interesting fit, but I think the team makes a little bit more sense with Aiden gone. Because now instead of like looking like this roster where it's 4 stars and like nothing else, it's like, okay, you've got your 3 elite scorers, all great 3-point shooters, and now you can kind of just like mix and match some role players around them. I think it's gonna be lethal. I think it's gonna be a really hard team to guard. Because like I said, they can all shoot really well, and they're all incredible off the dribble. So I think the offense on this team is gonna be tough to beat. So I like putting them here. I just like the idea of betting on Durant and Booker.
For me, they did fall to 6. I don't know. Like you said, The talent is very clearly there. I just wonder if, three, you know, scorers that are very scoring focused. Sometimes I just wonder if the fit's gonna make sense, if Beal's gonna be able to find an effective role. And ultimately, they're deep and they have good role players that could potentially like step up, but I don't know if they have great role players. They have, they don't have like third option level role players. Obviously, they have a big three already, but are they
Yeah,
going to
it
have a
feels.
guy that's
I think
really?
they're probably gonna have to start somebody who like shouldn't be a starter in the league because it's gonna be like Booker, Beal, Durant, Nurkic at center, and then I don't really know who they saw on that power forward or who they put in that small forward, depending on
No
how
idea.
they want to do it. But yeah, no, they need one more forward essentially in the starting lineup, and I'm not really sure who it is right now. So that would be like the big concern with the Suns is like, are they deep enough, to make a good run, and like, will they be healthy enough? Because you do kind of add another question mark by adding Nurkic to your team. Because like, is he gonna be healthy? Is he gonna be good? I don't really know if Nurkic is even good. So we'll kind of see. Like, I like to think he's good. Like, he puts up good stats, and like, I think he seems like a smart player. But he also just seems like super slow, and I don't know if he's gonna get played off the court in certain matchups.
Yeah, and I think they're they're going to be excellent offensively, but defensively they don't have a lot of dogs. Like,
I'm kind of talking myself into dropping this team. I'm kind of getting over them. I might I might drop them down one more spot and bump up the team I have below them.
yeah, for me they don't sit super well with me in terms of fit and but obviously a very talented team and they're decently deep. But yeah, like I said, I feel like they don't have good like fourth, fifth options. Like a lot of their role players are good like sixth, seventh kind of end of the rotation guys.
Yeah, yeah. For the sake of this pod, we can still leave our Suns talk here, but I think the team I have at 5, I'm gonna kind of bump up in my own rankings up to 4 above them. It's just because I also love I just love the younger teams. Who do you have at 5? Because you Warriors 4, Suns 6. That means your 5 is a mystery. Maybe this is where we have a little bit more crossover.
I don't think we will. This is a team I'm very hot on, and it's the Kings. That I have
Mm,
a lot of faith in Keegan Murray and Vezenkov. I
where
love
do I have the Kings
Sabonis.
this year?
I don't know. I'm
I'm
just
like
very, very hot on the Kings.
I get it. Like they were really good last year, but they're weirdly a team I'm kind of low on this year. Um, they one they have an easy schedule, and two, I just feel like the West has gotten better. I feel like the West was like weak last year, and they capitalized. Everybody was healthy, worked out nicely. But I think the West has crept up on them a little bit, and I don't think we'll see them be like second or third seed again. Um, but I don't know. I jumped the gun though. Give me your take on why you like the Kings.
I For me, they're a roster that makes a ton of sense. The role players make a ton of sense. I love that they have great forward depth. I mean, they have a clear star guard in Fox and a great pick and roll partner in Sabonis, but I do genuinely think Vezenkov, I like beat that to
Dude,
death. But on
how
top
much is
of
he
him,
paying you?
on top of on top of that, I just really like Keegan Murray. I think Harrison Barnes is still super viable. Like those three as your forwards, I think is an excellent rotation. I think they have great shooting with Keegan, with Huerter, with um Duarte they added. Like I'm trying to let's see who else do they have on that roster. Malik Monk is still there. Um They have one more guy that I kind of like. Trey Lyles has been decent. So I don't know. I think they have like a good 7-8 man rotation that makes a lot of sense. Guys who know their roles. And last year, their first year as a group, I think they did so well that I kind of expect them to take another step up. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I'm super hot on Vizenkov and Keegan Murray. Like I think both of those guys Keegan Murray, like more borderline, like legit third option, and Vezenkov is just going to be an excellent fourth, fifth guy, just a guy that'll fit very seamlessly into this roster and how they play. So
Yeah, I think the roster is good and it makes a lot of sense. But I think kind of the issue I have when I'm like power ranking is that I'm like how good are their stars though? Because like Fox and Sabonis are both really good. Obviously, they're both all star caliber guys, but yeah, it's like now they're like superstar. Like if they're gonna match up against the Suns, I'd be like, the Suns are healthy. Like the Suns have the two best players in the series, like kind of by a mile. Like I think like Book and Durant are like dramatically better than Fox and Sabonis. So I would lean towards the Suns even with a thinner team just because I think when it comes down to it, like star power is just like so important when it comes to the NBA.
That's a fair point. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think the Suns and the Kings are very on par, but I like the entire team more
Hmm.
for the Kings, and I think I am maybe a tiny bit too hot on them, but I'm happy being too hot on them. I just think they make it.
Yeah, yeah, and they're a fun team, and they were really good last year too. So like there's no need to be like it's like you don't really need to like justify thinking like a team that was good last year is going to be good again. Because they are good. The team's deep. It makes a ton of sense, and I like the way their offense works. I've always said I'm a big fan of like the Fox Sabonis pick and roll, kick it out to shooters, and also like maybe someone like Keegan Murray takes a big step. That would be huge if he can like make some improvements. Because I really like his potential. So we'll see. I think the Kings will be good again. I just think the big question is like how good, especially in a West that feels like it always comes down to like a couple of games with seeding. And I feel like a good first round matchup is like very key to them. Like if they get like a good first round matchup, it's like I could definitely see them advancing. But if they get stuck with like the seventh or eighth seed and have to go against like the Nuggets or Warriors, then they might be in trouble.
Hey, they took the Warriors to 7, but it was pretty
Sure.
concerning how Looney ended up like totally out rebounding Sabonis, and Sabonis, being considered a great rebounder.
Yeah,
And
it could be good. It could be good Zag though, because I feel like people are kind of low on Sabonis now after that playoff series, and I've heard a lot of people give the take where they're like, "I don't think Sabonis is a good playoff player." This definitely like brings down the ceiling for the Kings, but I don't think one bad playoff series you know writes the whole story for a player. And I've always loved Sabonis. I think Sabonis is really good. So it could be a good time to like kind of like bet on the Kings, while a lot of people lower on them because I think when they get to the playoffs next year, I think Sabonis will be a lot better. I think he had a bad series. I don't think he's a bad playoff player by any means.
agreed. And maybe they could use another defensive piece, because Sabonis defensively and I mean, usually he's a great rebounder, but in that series he was kind of exposed. So it's like,
Yeah, it would be nice if they had like a big defensive center coming off the bench because I know they were going with well they were rocking with like Rashawn Holmes for a while who was like he's like pretty good on offense like a backup center but he's not like a
yeah.
defensive juggernaut. So we'll see who they kind of bring off the bench now to take those minutes and if they can make more of an impact on the defensive end.
I just really like their system. I love how they have that pick and roll, and then Sabonis's ability to pass out of that pick and roll. If he's the roller, he's so good at reading, and then they have such great shooters and wings that, and the Suns for me are kind of on that opposite end of the spectrum, and they do have such, star power. But I wonder if there's going to be a system that makes sense, or it's just going to be kind of trading ISOs. Beal's gonna struggle to find his place, and then the role players are just kind of being, struggling to find any shots or find their place. So either way, they're very close for me. But for those reasons, I opt for the better system. But your point that star power tends to win out, I think is super important. They do have the two better players in the series, so
Yeah, I think it's big time going to come down to how good the Suns off season signings end up actually being. Because if a lot of these like decent role players like end up being kind of unplayable, then this team just might not have enough to make anything happen. But if they can be good enough to be serviceable, then there's no ceiling on a team with Durant and Booker. So we'll see. I'm excited to see both teams play.
for sure. Yeah. I mean, hey, I love Utah Watanabe. He'll play defense and
That's
hit.
true. He's a,
But
he's a good shooter. Yeah, maybe they just start him at small forward. I don't know if he's quite tall enough for it, but
anyone else, I don't know. Josh Okogie, Eubanks. I don't know if they can just be guys that are serviceable enough on defense to.
I don't know. They started the Kogi a lot last year, so maybe that's like their guy to start at small forward, and then just Durant power forward, Nurkic center. I don't know. Well, we'll have to see.
Yeah.
But all right, do we want to part two before we get into our next team? Because I definitely want to talk a
Yes.
lot about them.
We only have a couple of minutes left. Making great progress. What, we're on five
Yeah,
or
this is
six?
literally gonna be like a 3 hour podcast at this rate. But like we'll go faster like once we get to like 15 or 20. Like our last like 10 we'll just like kind of like run through and be like these teams suck, who cares?
We could maybe do 2 parts, but who's gonna watch 15 through 30 power rankings? I don't know.
Yeah, no way. We'll figure it out, but we'll try to go a little bit faster for the rest of this.
Be right back. And we're back. We got through 5 or 6. I love ranking shit. It's such an easy format, and I feel like it gives the episode perfect structure, and I love ranking shit.
Yeah, everything flows so nicely together, and there's always great stuff that we can reference later. Like these are gonna be fun to because after like the first like month of the season, we'll do power rankings again, and they'll be totally different than this. So it's gonna be great. But this is essentially our baseline going into the season.
Yeah,
Let's see. Without further ado, we pretty much had your 1 through
6.
6.
Yeah,
I still need to give my. I
5
think
and
I still need to go like my 5 and 6. So 5 was where I had Grizzlies, and Grizzlies I was tempted to even put above the Suns there. That was the team where I was like, do I put them above? Because I kind of do just love these young teams. Like I always kind of like look at the Grizzlies roster and I'm like, I don't really know if this team stacks up with like the best teams in the West, but then they go on and they win 50 plus games and they like look really good in the playoffs and their defense smothers everybody. And I'm like, clearly like this team just like has amazing chemistry and I'm being ignorant to it. So like I'm on the Grizzlies train this year. Jaw's gonna miss 25 games, but I think Marcus Smart is gonna fill in beautifully. And I think when Jaw comes back and they're running lineups with, him, Smart, Bane, maybe Smart's coming off the bench at that point, and Jaren Jackson Jr., and Steven Adams, I just think the defense is going to be incredible. And I think Morant is going to be as explosive and incredible as ever. And I think the team's going to be really hard to stop. And I just think they make a ton of sense. And they're probably like the second best defensive team in the league behind the Celtics, if not the number 1 team. So they're going to be fun to watch. And I think these younger teams just kind of run laps around the older teams now. I'm starting to wonder if like now is the time to like sell, and all the old teams have been good the last 10 years. Like, should we be like selling the Warriors, selling the Suns, selling the Lakers, and then buying, Kings, buying Thunder, buying the Grizzlies? Like, should these be like the top teams that we're ranking? I don't really know, but I'm ready to say like the Grizzlies should be there, and I'm still waiting to see a little bit more of the Kings and Thunder before I'm ready to put them above some of those teams with the older superstars.
Yeah, I'm really not as hot on the Grizzlies. I don't get me wrong. I think it's a good time to buy. But I think the stock's gonna explode maybe next year or the year after. Like, I don't know. Teams like the Warriors, teams like the Suns less so, but I guess just the Warriors. I still think they've got it in them, and Steph isn't that old, but the Grizzlies, they fall to 10 for me, which I don't know. I'm maybe having some second thoughts, but
It always sounds worse when you're power ranking like the entire NBA. It's
right.
like because like 10 is like that could be the equivalent of being like 4th or 5th in the conference, which like isn't that bad.
But I don't know. I wonder if the depth is really there. Jaw, incredible. Jaren Jackson, borderline incredible. And then you've got Desmond Bane, who's obviously very good, and he missed a lot of time. So that's a very good big 3. But then it's like, I don't know, Marcus Smart's, Steven Adams are
Don't disrespect Marcus. We love Marcus.
we loved
we
Marcus.
we were saying he's like I don't know. We've been saying he's been an amazing piece for the last 10 years. Can't get off him now. I think he's still an amazing piece for the Grizzlies. I think he'll be really good for them. And I kind of think the surrounding pieces are good enough. Like, I don't know, just like looking up their roster, it's like Adams is good. Santi Aldama, I still like, although he did kind of fall off a cliff after the first month, but he's still like a 7-foot sharpshooter. Clark gives good minutes. Kennard is still a really good shooter. Like I think Kennard is like a good guy to have.
I don't think
And then they
enough.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. And I think they have some just like other interesting young guys, and we'll kind of see if any of these guys end up being something. Between like David Roddy, Zaire Williams, some of those guys. But I don't know. I think they're good, and I think they always like play above the talent that's on their roster. Like I think like the sum of their parts is greater than just like looking at the individual names.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think they're going to be a great regular season team. I just wonder come playoffs if the offense is going to be able to hold up Because yeah, outside of Ja, Jaren, and Bane, and Jaren struggles to stay on the court with his fouling issues and whatnot. I don't know if there's enough pieces to really sustain a good enough offense come playoffs. I
That
love the
that
vibes of this team. I do.
yeah. Yeah, well, I feel like that's kind of what I'm betting on is that they do have enough offense to be playoff viable. Because I think their defense is going to be super smothering, and I think like Jaw's like a full on superstar. Like nobody's guarding him in the playoffs. So if he's averaging like 30 plus points per game, 10 rebounds, 10 assists on good efficiency in the playoffs, which he's very capable of doing, I think that alone can produce enough offense to get them wins. And then you'll also have Desmond Bane, who can score 20 plus points per game. Jaren Jackson Jr. is a solid enough scorer. Like he'll be averaging 15 plus. Marcus can average 15 plus. Like I think there's enough there on offense for them to win games, especially with how smothering their defense is.
It'd be cool to see Desmond Bane take yet another step. I know we know he can score 20 plus on very good 3-point shooting. But I don't know. I still think he's one step away from being like the true number two to Jaws stardom. And then maybe it was the FIBA Team USA FIBA that Jaren Jackson. I'm like, I still love Jaren Jackson. I had him in fantasy. I won that chip. But he's not very consistent. And again, the fouling issues I think aren't as big of a deal when you have Steven Adams backing him up the whole year. But I don't know. He's a great offensive player and a great defensive player. So I guess what's wrong with him? I don't know. I just think this team isn't deep enough outside of those three. And then I still kind of question Jaren Jackson as a legit number 2/3. I mean, Ja is excellent. Ja can do no wrong except flash guns and get suspended. But on the court, he's impossible to stop. But and then they lost the heart and soul of their team in Dylan Brooks. I don't know how they.
No, of course. I mean, addition by subtraction. I mean, they're already better by getting rid of Dylan Brooks. Although, again, like after seeing him in FIBA, I kind of like Dylan Brooks again. So I don't know.
Yeah, and Marcus
We'll
Smart.
see. We'll see. Anyway, not to burn too much time on the Grizzlies, but I'm hot on them. I think they're gonna have a good season. I think they've got
Yeah,
and I think these young teams like when they do good, like I think the ceiling can continue to get higher with them. So we'll see. I had them at 5. I had the Warriors at 6. Um, I think in hindsight, like I might even put the Warriors above the Suns. Because you're right, like the roster is just like a little bit deeper. I think they're in a better chance to like one, take a hit. If there's an injury, they can still be good. Whereas the Suns like stink if anybody gets hurt. They're deeper, they're healthier than last year now that Wiggins is back and playing. I still don't really know how I feel about the Chris Paul move, so we'll see. But regardless, like at the end of the day, like they still have Curry. They're still only like 2 years removed from a championship. So this is still very much like a finals caliber team. We've seen them do it. So I kind of like that you had them at 4th. I think that is actually a good spot for them.
I fucking love Looney too. I've
Yeah, he
always
gets
loved Looney.
boards. He gets boards.
He's just a really good passer, smart player. Obviously, I like Kuminga a lot. I hope he can take a step this year. But yeah, who's your 6th?
Warriors are 6th. That's what I was saying. So
Oh,
it
I
was
see.
essentially so it's like big three were like Nuggets, Celtics, Bucks, and then I had Suns, Grizzlies, Warriors. But I think I'd essentially flip those down and do like Warriors 4, Grizzlies 5, Suns 6.
Okay, and I have Warriors, Kings, Suns.
Yeah.
For
So we've essentially just flipped on Suns, Grizzlies because I put the Kings at
no.
10. Oh, sorry, I meant to say Kings, Grizzlies.
Yes.
Because yeah, I have the Kings at 10, and both teams are also kind of hard to judge because I mention this all the time. I love talking about strength of schedule. But Grizzlies and Kings both had the easiest schedules last season. So it's like take your pick on which team you think is going to regress. It's totally possible that both teams regress and both teams are not nearly as good as they appeared to be last season. So we'll have to see because there are still kind of some mysteries because they both had cakewalks.
All right.
On to 7 though. We finally got out of the top 6. Who do you have? We have the same team at 7. I guarantee it. Give me your team. It's
I
the
don't.
Cavs. Come on.
It's the Sixers.
Dude, Oh my
I
God,
I, I
fine.
wouldn't mind. The Cavs are 8 for me. I would be comfortable switching those, but I don't know if Harden stops being a weenie. Like the Sixers team I love, and they've been talking shit, like kind of being passive aggressive about Doc Rivers all through the media day, raving about Nick Nurse, his offense, and Embiid is saying things like that he doesn't need to be the only scorer. He's happy to pass. I love their pieces in the addition of Oubre. I love Melton. Paul Reed is a good backup big.
People always say this shit on media day.
This roster makes sense. It makes sense. Doc Rivers, I think, was not a good coach, not a good fit for this team. And if Harden, please Harden, and I mean he's showing up to practice, I think so. Please just be the bigger person. Please just realize that this roster is perfectly built around you and your game. I think this Sixers team could be very good and a top 3 team in the East, but obviously the Cavs are much more in a better situation in terms of their stars not being annoying, and they added some depth in the offseason. So I definitely respect your.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's well said. And I think that's what it essentially comes down to is James Harden going to play? Is he not going to play? It's getting very close to the season to where I'm getting like a little bit weirded out by it. And there has been some more Clippers buzz, although it kind of sounds like Maury has told the Clippers that their deal's not good enough and it's not going to happen. So it is all of a sudden looking like more likely that Harden could stay. If Harden does stay, I would put the 76ers over the Cavs like pretty easily. And I'd probably bump the Sixers up like even higher. Like I think I'd put them above the Suns. I think I'd put them above the Grizzlies, Warriors. Maybe that's probably like the conversation they're in. But this seems amazing. Like if they keep James Harden, like they were really good last year. I think Maxey will continue to only get better. You mentioned Oubre. Like I thought Oubre is such a sneaky signing. I don't know why no one ever wants to keep Oubre. Like I think he's a good player, super handsome, great fashion. Why wouldn't you want this in your locker room? So that was a good addition for them. And the roster still makes a ton of sense. And they have Joel Embiid, who's the MVP. And like I said, just like having those superstars matters. So if you've got Harden and Embiid in the playoffs, like I think that just puts you above a lot of other teams, especially considering the depth that they have.
Oubre's funny. He's kind of like Christian Wood, and the fact that it's a bit mysterious how teams seem to shy away from them, given their production and potential. But Oubre, I think he is someone that he'll start hucking if he gets too emotionally invested, and he hasn't really been part of a great winning team. So, but that being said, for the reasons you give and just the fit, I think with the Sixers team giving them an extra edge defensively, especially, I do like that signing.
Yeah, yeah, and then like yes, they're good. I had the Cavs, one spot higher, just because I know what's happening with that team. So
Yeah,
we'll see. But like it feels like they've got a pretty nice like three-headed monster on that team with Garland, Mitchell, and Mobley, and like, kind of like a four-head monster if you want to include Jared Allen in there as well. So I think that team is going to continue to be like really good, like awesome interior defense, terrible perimeter defense, but then just like amazing on offense with their shooters, and like Mobley being so talented. And they made some good additions this offseason too by let's see
yeah,
who'd they steal from the Heat? Not even Yang. I like Yang,
Bruce.
but yeah, they took Struce, so I think that's good. But I think they still have like a very glaring hole at the small forward position. I don't know. I weirdly feel like the team that has a ceiling, and I think is maybe it's just like their superstars aren't quite as good as the other superstars in the East. But because of that, like I kind of like don't really see a way that they ever like tap into the tier that's occupied by like the Bucks, the Celtics, potentially the Sixers if Harden stays. And it's like because like as much as I love Donovan Mitchell, I just don't think he's in like he's just not in the same tier as like Giannis and Tatum and Embiid. He's just not.
Yeah, and just the way that team is built, it's a bit tough with Mobley and Allen kind of having similar archetypes. I mean, obviously they're a bit different in who they can guard, but essentially they're two very defensively oriented big men who struggle a bit offensively, especially with spacing, and then two undersized guards in Garland and Mitchell, who also have similar games, require the ball in their hands, and granted they play fairly well together, but I think that does restrict them On top of, like you said, Mitchell not quite being in that superstar tier, but he's damn close. You know, he's really a an excellent player. So I think that's why the Sixers kind of I was happy to put them ahead. I think the Caps have a better chance of the better regular season record, a more consistent group, a higher floor, but the Sixers for sure have the higher ceiling with Embiid, Harden, and company. So
Hmm.
yeah, should we? Who do you have at 9, or is there anything else you want to touch on?
Is that what you had? Were you 76ers then Cavs, or did you have anyone sandwiched in between?
No,
They were just that
six
was
or
7-8
seven,
for you.
Cavs 8. Yeah,
Okay, cool. That makes sense. Our lists are pretty similar then. Yeah, no, I think it's good. And I don't think we need to like we can go into further detail on these teams later.
yeah,
I think that's kind of just perfect to touch on like the main points. Yeah, this is where things get like a little more interesting. I feel like this is where I kind of let my heart take over a bit, but I don't know. I
totally.
put the Thunder here. I think the Thunder are gonna kick ass. So I was like, Thunder. I think SGA is like going to be one of the best players in the league this year, and I think he actually is a guy that's going to get close into that MVP conversation and kind of could be in that tier. Not quite like the same level of like Tatum and Giannis, but I think he could be like a tier below that. And I think having a player like that alone is huge. The depth is amazing. Josh Giddey's amazing. I think Chet is going to have a phenomenal season. J Dub is amazing, coming off an amazing rookie year. So I think so. They're super young. They were really good last year and got their way into the play-in. I think they're only going to be better, and I don't know. I think they've got a chance to like run circles around some of these older teams, and I think they'd be a hard matchup for most teams in the West.
I think they certainly would. Yeah, they fall a bit lower for me. I ended up putting the Heat ninth, but yeah, the Thunder. I love them just as you do. But I don't know. My mind tells me they're not quite in that tier. I don't see them really making it to the Western Conference Finals, for example. I think they're definitely going to take a step up. Super excited for Chet, and like you said, SGA is a superstar. Giddy is a great number 2, but they are still super young.
But like, let me ask you a question. Like, if the Kings and the Thunder went head to head in a series, who do you think wins that series?
I do think the Kings would win.
Interesting. I think the Thunder would win that series.
I, I I don't know. I mean, like SGA might be the best player out there, but Fox, I think, with his experience and age, is very close, and in a playoff series would play nearly as well. And then like I don't know, Sabonis, I think, is levels above any other player on OKC, and someone like Chet is just I think too young at this point. Giddy, great, but I think it's they're not at that point in their career. Whereas I think the Kings between Fox and Sabonis, and even guys like Barnes, you know, Vezenkov,
Of
they're
course.
definitely a
Well, I
more
mean, I was gonna say I feel like the Kings were like considered this like young, experienced team like literally last year. Like last year was like their first time making the playoffs in so long. So like although they got like me like 1 year of additional playoff experience, like I also kind of view them as this young and inexperienced team.
mm,
And I feel like every season we kind of have like this like young team that takes a bigger leap than expected. Like last year was the Kings. The Kings ended up being way better than expected. The year before that was the Grizzlies. Like nobody thought the Grizzlies were going to be good, and then they were like the second seed. It kind of just like happens. Like people always expect like this like slow progression of like you go from the eighth seed to the seventh seed, then the sixth seed, and 5 years later you're finally like a top three seed. But I think more often than not, it's like a dramatic change, and it's like boom, like all of a sudden you go from play in tournament to contender. And I think that's coming for the Thunder. So I hope it's this season. If not this season, it's gonna be the next season. But I'm bullish. I think they're awesome.
I'm bullish as well, but I still doubt their depth and their experience. And it's a good point that the Kings have made the playoffs for the first time in a long time. But Sabonis is still in his late 20s, Fox as well. Like Giddy's 20. SGA is I don't know what
Yeah.
24 maybe.
Yeah, but they're awesome. But they're amazing. Who
And
cares?
depth wise, like outside of their top 4, I'm like, I don't know. They don't really have um guys who I think are really ready to compete at to be effective in a playoff series. But I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
Poku is better than advertised. Poku sucks. I'm sorry.
Poku does suck. Poku's confirmed done.
Who else
Um,
then? I mean, what? The other Jalen Williams? No. Trey Mann?
we'll
No.
we'll we'll see. Who knows? Trey Man's decent. I don't think he'll play a ton of minutes for them, but I think he's a good player. They've got Dort on like a fairly big contract. He's just like a stout defender. Kind of a good player. I don't think he's great, but I think he's good enough. But
Yeah.
I do think they probably need somebody else to step up at center and give them valuable minutes there, because they're gonna be asking a lot of Chet if they're gonna start him at center, which I don't think they're gonna do. I think they'll probably start with him at power forward.
Fox
So I think there's still a little bit of a question mark there.
Fox and SGA, I think would go. I mean, I think I'm just repeating myself, but they would go pretty close head to head. I think SGA might have the better stats, whatever. But I think Sabonis, Chet is no match. He's too young, too inexperienced. Sabonis is too big, too strong. I think Chet's gonna have an
Yeah, yeah,
awesome first year, but it's just. And then you add Barnes, you add Murray, you add Vezenkov.
yeah. Vincent Cobb. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. That's where I have the Thunder though.
They
Who
fall. They fall to 13th on my list.
that's not too bad. Who do you have at 9?
I have the Heat.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that. Yep, that's where the Heat go.
Not
Didn't
too
get
much to
Lillard,
say.
but yeah, it just feels like they've kind of fallen down to become like a middle of the pack East team. Like they still play hard. They still have a pretty good trio in Hero, Butler, and Bam, even though it feels like Hero's been like super underrated now because he kind of like missed the playoffs last year and nobody thought the Lillard package was good enough with him in it. But it's still a good team. I think people have overreacted to the loss of Struess and Vincent, neither of who I think are particularly good players. I think there are more so good fits in the Heat system, and you're kind of going to realize that they're not super valuable pieces. Once you see Vincent play for the Lakers and Struess on the Cavs. So we'll see. I think the Heat will still be good, but I just don't think they have enough to compete with like the rest of the East now.
Kind of a funny side note, but the Lakers Twitter right now is like on fire because Cam Reddish had such a horrible game. And I think Gabe Vincent didn't look too hot either, so
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
a
go
little bit in
figure.
shambles. But
I still love Cam Reddish though. The breakout's still coming.
you should have seen the highlights. But the Heat have a big hole at point guard, and maybe Tyler Hero. He's shown some potential passing, but that's he's a pretty pure two guard. So they'll need somebody to step up. I think our boy Jaime Jaquez Jr.
He's looked awesome. He's looked awesome. I think he'd easily just like become Struess. I don't think he's as good as of a shooter, but I mean more so just like take those minutes and be a valuable player.
But they still need
And
better
also,
guards.
and they've also got Jovic. They still
Yeah.
technically have Kyle Lowry on their roster, so like maybe he'll be something. I think worst case scenario that they could probably salary dump Kyle Lowry halfway through the season and get somebody back because I'm pretty sure Lowry is on an expiring now. So if they could just get like some kind of like point guard capable of giving them 20 minutes a night, I think they'd be good.
Caleb Martin is still alive and well.
Yeah, we know how good he was against the Celtics, although I think that was kind of an aberration.
Yeah. I mean, they have a little bit of depth. They have a good big three, and they just need a good point guard that maybe they can land through a trade or who knows. But all in all, they made the finals. They beat the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. So I think they deserved my number 9 spot. But I would be kind of happy to put the Grizzlies above them. They were 10th for me, obviously. So if they were 9th, Heat 10th, that's fine too. But
Yeah, I have the Heat just a little bit lower. So I had the Thunder at 9, and then 10's where I had the Kings. That's where you had the Grizzlies. We kind of just swapped those picks. I think it's a good place to have them. Who do you have at 11?
I have the Knicks.
Yeah, that's your Knicks. Yeah, yeah. I think it's a fair enough spot for them. I don't really know what to expect from the Knicks this season. They didn't really make any huge changes. They're essentially just running it back with the same roster. But I think their guys are still kind of young enough to where they could take like a mini step, like Brunson one more year with the team. Maybe this is the year that like Barrett finally figures it out. So we'll see. I still like the Knicks a lot, but again, like I kind of put them in the same group as I don't know, maybe a team like the Cavs, where I'm like they're young, they're fun, but I don't know if they can really compete with the rest of the teams.
They kind of handedly beat the Cavs. I mean, I think it was
They
4 to
did.
2.
They smacked the Cavs.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was a beatdown.
So, they have really nice supporting pieces. They added DiVincenzo and they have Josh Hart now. I think Brunson is
Good
so
pickup.
awesome. So, if quickly was awesome last year, he's still super young. So, um, I like the Knicks. I'm happy with them here. They lack true star power, but I see them making the second round of the playoffs at least.
Yeah, I have them a little bit lower, essentially just behind like the Heat and like one other team. But yeah, I think this is like yeah, right around where they should be. I expect them to kind of end the season probably again around um, you know, fifth seed, fifth or sixth. I think that's probably their spot, and we'll see. Like maybe we'll get a good first round matchup, then go up against the Cavs again. That would be ideal. But if they end up falling any lower, then they'll probably just be a first round exit.
Yeah. So 11th, you had the Heat. No.
No, I didn't. No, this is where I have a bad take. That I'm just doubling down from my Western Conference rankings. This is where I put my Pelicans. I don't know why. Like I think some of these other teams are probably better, and like I think going off my Western Conference rankings, like they would have been even higher here. But like after seeing like for example like Trey Murphy, he tore his meniscus. Like he's gonna miss a couple months now. It's like that kind of sucks. I saw Ingram play in the FIBA World Cup. He looked like dog shit. So now I'm kind of like worried. I'm like, is this guy like about to lose it? Like, is he just gonna? I don't know. Like, is he gonna get it in his own head? Is he gonna have a hard season, especially after having a pretty good one last year? Um, but also, it's like we're getting Zion's first healthy season in about 2 seasons. Like the last 2 years, he's gone into the start of the season injured and has like essentially not played at all. So we're finally getting a healthy Zion season here. I expect good things out of the Pelicans. Zion's still like a full-on superstar when he's playing, so I think that can kind of give them a jump on a lot of other teams. And I kind of like the surrounding cast. Like I feel like the team is still like pretty deep. Because like McCollum still kind of feels like a near all-star player. Valanciunas has given them really good minutes. I like some of their scrappier guys like Alvarado, Dyson Daniels, Herb Jones is a really good defender. And then when Trey Murphy comes back, like he's like a lights out 3-point shooter. So I still just like really like the rosters. Like I still like what they're doing here. I think they're gonna be flirting with the play in, but if the team's fully healthy, I think they could flirt with even better than that.
Yeah. I need to see it to believe it kind of thing. And I'm not convinced. I mean, in our Western Conference power rankings, obviously, with how far apart we were on them, I think you made a great case for Brendan Ingram. And watching him at Team USA, yeah, he wasn't good, but he wasn't able to play his game, if you will. But I think the points you made before, the strides he's taken as a playmaker, and how talented of a scorer he is, are legit. I've always said staying on the court is a problem for him. Zion healthy season is not a very likely scenario in my opinion. And I don't know. I guess I'm not as hot on the supporting cast. Like McCollum and Val are great players, but they're definitely getting up there in age. And I think Alvarado, meh, Dyson Daniels, a little young. I see the potential, but Trey Murphy, awesome, love him, but just tore his meniscus or whatever. So I don't
Yeah, we'll
know.
see. Yeah,
Not
my yeah,
19th on
my
my list.
yeah, my final round off of this. We only spend too much time though. We've already talked about them a lot, but like Ingram averaged like 25 points, 6 assists, 6 rebounds last season, which is like pretty impressive. So I think there is a world where this like Brandon Ingram Zion duo like actually like works out and they play 65 plus games. And if that's the case, like I envision a world where they're like legitimately one of the best duos in the league. And if you got two of the best duos in the league, or two of the best players in the league on your team, and they're at like that like small forward, power forward position. You have these two-way guards or two-way forwards. I think that's like super valuable, and I think that would make them a really tough team to go against.
Hey, in a world where both of those guys can play 60 games, I'm fully in
This
because
is the year. Buy now.
okay. Okay. I mean, I'll buy a
Uh,
little bit of stock, but yeah, I'm not that's not gonna I need to diversify my portfolio. I'm definitely gonna buy, you know, I'm gonna buy a lot of wolf stock.
I like that. Okay, yeah, I
They're
respect.
my
Anyway,
12th.
Yeah, that was Pelicans. They're my 11. Heat are my 12. We've already talked Heat. You
Real
have T
quick,
Wolves at 12. Yeah.
I think we should make 2 videos out of this. And
Okay,
I
deal. Yeah, we'll call it a 15. I was thinking we'd even just like rapid fire through like 6 through 30 and like not even mention why, but yeah, let's do 2 parts. Let's do
Yeah,
2 parts
we
because I
got
think
10
people will still
minutes.
be interested in 15 through 30.
And I can see the clickbait top 15 worst teams power rankings too. I think that'll get us 100 views. And
Deal.
then top 15, I'm I think that can get us 150. But all right, we got 10 minutes to get through our 15. So you said your Heat were 12th for you,
Yeah, Heater 12 for me. So we've already talked Heat.
Pelicans
So we
11.
can we can go into your T
My 12th are
Wolves.
the Timberwolves. Man, you should have seen them in their preseason game against the Mavs. Let me pull up their roster. I think this is just a very deep team. And Towns, man, he looks like he's back. Obviously, I still have very big doubts on his ability to perform come playoffs. I think, we've seen the offense definitely struggle, but Gobert is kind of a player that I kind of latch on to. I still believe in the potential of him being such an incredible defender. Like this is a 3-time defensive player of the year. Um, and Cat is a superstar at his best, and then Ant. Those three to me make so much sense. And then on top of that, they've got guys like Jaden McDaniels, who is legitimately one of the best defenders in the league. He's like 99th percentile for every defensive stat you can imagine. Let's see. I love Kyle Anderson as a point forward, somebody that can play a bit of power forward, who's just gonna pass and really get the offense going. He's not going to be looking for his shot. Nas Reed. They added Shake Milton, I think, who's decent. Nikhil Alexander. Shake Milton is not that good, but maybe a deep rotation guy. Nikhil Alexander Walker kind of in that same boat. Mike Conley, like they have a lot of guys that can step up and be decent role players. I really think around a potentially very good big three that's also well balanced offensively, defensively. So I'm very hot. Maybe not as hot as Bobby Marks, but I'm hot on them, especially regular season. And then come playoffs, it's a bit dicey, but I do like the Wolves.
Yeah, I'm still not like totally convinced about the Towns Gobert duo, but like I think the roster like does have talent on it. And I think Anthony Edwards is definitely going to take a big step this season. I think that alone would be, could be potentially huge for them in the standings. But I don't know, I feel like even like Gobert and Ant like kind of had their issues last year, where like Ant felt like he wasn't playing his best basketball when he's playing next to Gobert because Gobert just kind of clogs the paint. So I'm still like not totally sure how the play styles are going to mesh this year, but maybe one more year of playing together, one more off season will be enough for them to figure it out.
Pablo Prigioni is an assistant coach on this team. That's what I
That's
was.
amazing. I had
That's
no
crazy.
idea.
I can't see it, but that's him.
No, not really. Hell yeah. Good for Pablo.
Insane, insane passer in his prime. Big Pablo Prigioni guy. Yeah, yeah. So I think I've said my piece on the Wolves, but I'm buying their stock, and I love Ant so much. Rudy Gobert, I love his Frenchness, and Cat cringe, but I've seen what he can do at his peak, and he's had some health and some other stuff that have kind of limited his time on the court, but it seems that he's back after the FIBA and the preseason. He looks so good. So
Yeah, he's one of the most talented centers ever. Probably the best 3-point shooting center ever. He's got all these like amazing skills, like great ball handler, great shooter for a center. Um, we'll see. He's always struggled to win games though with it, but we'll see if this is the year where they can finally start to, um, make it. I don't know, make it worth it.
yeah, 13 is where I had OKC.
Cool.
I still feel like I'm super hot on them compared to a lot of other people. You're a little bit hotter for sure, but I think we both agree that Shea he was already basically a top 5 MVP candidate last year.
Yeah.
He's in the prime of his prime, and guys like Giddy, giddy for guys like
Well said.
thank you, Jalen Williams, J Dub. Wasn't able to play for the first. I mean, we've said our piece, but yeah, J Dub the latter half of last season was incredible. So super, super excited for these guys. Chat, blah, blah, blah. 14, I had the Lakers.
Yeah, I had the Lakers at 13, which feels about right. I think that probably puts them in about like the seventh or eighth seed range. I think their roster is pretty good. I think LeBron's still amazing. I think Anthony Davis is still amazing, but don't know if I really trust them to stay healthy. Don't know if the cast of D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reeves, Gabe Vincent, Rui Hachimura, like I don't buy into this group. I think like a lot of those guys are gonna end up sucking and people don't expect it. I don't really know who it's gonna be, but some of those people are disappointed this season. So just get ready for it. And I think part of that supporting cast and then just like the Stars not playing that many games, I think it'll probably be enough to give them a low seed. And then I think they would get absolutely smacked by like, the Nuggets or I don't know, like the Warriors, any other like top team in the West.
Yeah. It's still mind blowing to me that they made it as far as they did last year. Good on them. I'm not betting on a repeat. I'm more
Closest sweep ever though. That sweep was so close. That was so close to going 7.
yeah. It for sure wasn't. And yeah, Rui, meh, I don't buy in. Vanderbilt, I like him as a hustle player, but meh. The Lakers fandom, similarly to the Celtics fandom, I have some self-awareness, but they hype the shit out of their teams.
But like we know when the teams aren't that good. Like when we're like rocking like Isaiah Thomas and all of them, we're like this seems fun, but like we're not
Yeah.
promising championships out here.
True, but yeah, even when we had like a starting lineup of like Jared Sullinger, Kelly Olynyk, and like Phil Pressey, I was hyping the shit out of them. So I
Fair
can't.
enough. Fair enough.
I'm a bit of a hypocrite. I have a drawing of them somewhere. It's pretty epic. Anyway, Lakers at 14 for me. Have you said you're 13 and 14? 13
Uh,
Lakers.
so so 13 was Lakers for me. 14 was Knicks. I feel like we've already said our piece on the Knicks.
Cool. 15th. Can we have the same 15th?
Atlanta.
Pacers.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah,
That sounds no,
yeah, I think take your pick here. We'll do a quick taco and then we can kind of finish it up. But
yeah,
I
we're
don't know.
two minutes.
I feel like yeah, what 2 minutes? That's enough. I feel like the Hawks are gonna be pretty good. I think Trae Young is still awesome. I think DeJounte is good enough. I don't know. I think they have some fun parts around that team. So I think they can still kind of make some noise in the regular season, but they're also a team that I think has a ceiling. And I don't love these two guard teams. So I don't know. I don't love the Hawks. Like I don't know. That's it. That's my
Either.
Hawks take.
I'm pretty low on them. I probably should be a bit higher. I won't spoil our other video where I'll tell you where they are, but yeah, Trey and DeJounte are awesome, and I think I probably should give them a little bit more credit as they are kind of a consistent playoff team. Trey is legitimately a great playoff player. You said I think there's a pretty hard ceiling, and the surrounding pieces I'm not totally convinced by. And Okongwu, I like his potential, but I don't think he's quite there yet. Slash, I don't think they figured out how to utilize him. Clint Capella's getting up there in age, not the same effect as we've once seen, and relying on those two guards to me.
Yeah, and they're already kind of in a money bind, which is like why I had to get rid of Collins because like not only was like Collins not a good fit, but they're like really hitting the tax with this team. So like they don't really have any. It doesn't really feel like they have any more moves left in them to get better. So I think the team is kind of just like what it is, and I think they're probably, I think they're a little bit spunky. I think they've got a chance to, like upset somebody in the first round, but that's kind of their ceiling.
All right. Yeah. And then the Pacers, I think I'm a little maybe a bit too hot on them, but I think the group makes a lot of sense. They're still young, they're still raw, but Tyrese, I'm in love with. I love Benny. I love Bruce Matherin as role players. Buddy Hield, if he sticks around, great player. We don't have enough time for me to complete this. Harry, are you in the mood to run through the latter 15, or do you want to do it another time?
I'd say let's do it another time. Before we close off though, shout out to Tassim Ellis. Please get better, my friend.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he got in a car accident this weekend, so wishing him the best.
Yeah, I think about a week ago. We don't have enough time. I think I can send you one more link and we close it out. We have to do a proper goodbye.
Yeah, we do. Okay, send it over.
Okay. So we were talking Pacers. Oh, and you, yeah, Tass Millis, an inspiration to us. I don't know the full
Absolutely.
details, but some pretty severe accident. They were talking about it on No Dunks, which is was formerly called the Starters. And they were just talking, and Skeets was saying how, he was getting a bit better. He was finally able to talk, and I was like, "What the hell? What happened?" And so there was this tragic accident. Tass is honestly my favorite member.
Yeah,
I,
Taz is amazing.
um. So yeah, I don't know. We felt it was appropriate to do a little tribute because we used to watch the Starters all the time before NBA games on NBA TV. We made the spaghetti, sugar, and what was the last ingredient? It
I
was like
believe it was spaghetti, sugar, and a ranch sandwich,
it was ranch.
which they made on their show with Terry Rozier, which was it was not very good, but they did in the show and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been making good content for a while. I feel like even before podcasting was huge, they were doing the starters and they were like a total inspiration. Just like the way they talk about basketball every day and like made it so fun. They always had the best segments when they were talking ball. Their personalities all meshed so well. Yeah, so I've always loved how they've done it, and wishing the best for Task because he's been like a total inspiration for both of us. And he's just an amazing person. So it's just very sad.
And true story, um, a year and a half ago, it must have been in June of 2021 or two. Celtics Warriors. It was like right before the finals. I was living in Alston, right outside of Boston. I had smoked a little weed, and I went to go shoot some hoops. And I was just shooting around, and I see these two guys on the opposite end of the court, and they didn't have a ball, and they were like, one guy was recording the other. I was like, okay, that's a bit weird. Um, one guy was wearing like a headband. I was like, okay, whatever. I didn't recognize them. They were kind of far away. And then eventually one of them approaches me, and he's like, because I had a ball, I was shooting around, and he's like, oh, okay, cool if I shoot some hoops with you, mate, or whatever. That's me doing an Australian accent because it was Lee Ellis, and I was like, what the fuck? And like I was kind of high, and I was just like, oh, what the hell?
The
Uh,
international man of mystery,
the
Lee
International Man
Ellis.
of Mystery. And I was like, I was kind of at a loss for words. I was like, oh, what the fuck? And I was like, dude, I think I know who you are. And he's like, oh, do you, mate? And I was like, you're Lee Ellis. And he's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm like, I was like, oh shit, you're probably here for the finals. They were doing some sort of meet and greet. I made their Instagram. I got a shirt. Kind of cool. So it was him and Trey. Tass and Skeets were not there, but they had gone out to cover the finals. And so we played a bit of basketball. Lee was kind of a try hard. I like tried to make a pass and he stuck out his leg. He did like the Jokic thing in a pickup game, which sprained the shit out of my thumb. So fuck you, Lee Ellis. Me and Trey were on the same team. We played a little 2v2. And all that to say that, yeah, the starters now called the No Dunks podcast, very close to our hearts. Them being four friends, I think, from college, or maybe Lee was later in the mix, but the way they podcast and cover basketball and kind of do fun segments is something we definitely aspire to. And learning that Tass was in this accident was pretty heartbreaking, again, because he's also the best member of No Dunk. So my heart goes out to them, and I hope he's able to recover, because yeah, he's such a great personality.
Yeah, well said. Good story. Yeah, yeah. Wishing our guy a speedy recovery. And hopefully soon enough they can get him back on the podcast because he's amazing. But obviously just like just hoping he has his health. Makes a strong recovery because this is bigger than basketball. It's bigger than No Dunks. As much as we love that podcast, it's all that Tass.
Yeah. um yeah, the dream would be, as basketball podcast hosts, to be acknowledged by them. Zach Lowe is obviously the gold standard as well,
Yeah,
uh,
he's like the golden snitch.
but yeah, it's something that Harry and I have connected over, our love for basketball podcasts. And again, that's what inspired the Harold McBasketball show, which Harry started to cover our fantasy league, but it's evolved into such a beautiful thing. So
Yes, absolutely. Oh,
on that note, I guess we'll film the bottom 15 maybe tomorrow or a bit later, and we'll do kind of
yeah. Yeah, we'll do it this upcoming week, and maybe we'll probably be out by like the end of the week. So y'all can catch up and figure out on which 15 teams we think are the worst, and which ones are like the worst, and which we think are kind of those like fringe like play-in teams. So it'll be fun. So stay tuned. They'll be coming later this week.
But yeah, thanks for joining us today. We got a few new subscribers, and their names are unrecognizable. So I think we're finally reaching new horizons, new markets, new people. I saw that you can also advertise your videos for like $100. You can put it on the homepage. So that sounds like too much money, but maybe we could do that if we really feel like we have a banging video. But
Yeah,
all
we'll
that to
see. We'll
say,
see.
the channel is slowly growing, and we're still having so much fun with it. So God bless, Harry. Any final words for the people at home?
No, thank you all for tuning in as always. Shout out our new subscribers also. I hope y'all are enjoying the content. Yeah, make sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and we will see y'all later this week.
God bless. Thank you guys.